Lumber camps, lumber camps. This video is about lumber camps. Everybody, Papercat here with a quick little theory breakdown. What is the value of building another lumber camp? Oftentimes I have these little questions, dogma that I have taken at face value, but I have been wondering how much is it actually worth it. So in this case, we want to look at when is it even worth dropping another lumber camp to reduce your villager walk time? Is it a big deal? Let's dive into it. Fun little topic. Let's go. So why is this important? What is a dynamic resource? So to me, you can kind of consider resources you gather as ones that are either static, you don't move, so your villagers are naturally going to be very efficient gathering them just by being next to them, or resources that are dynamic, that change over time. So wood is a dynamic resource. As you cut away wood, your villagers have to walk more, which is thus reducing the amount they are gathering per minute. For food, you can consider berries like this. You can also consider deer, but once the deer are dead, they don't move, right? But most food sources are static. Gold, stone, static. Wood is very dynamic. And so the question often becomes, when do we drop that second lumber camp? It's often easy to miss when I'm doing coaching or I'm watching replay reviews of players from lower leagues. It's very common for them to have vills that are very deep in the wood line and they're not at another lumber camp because the order of importance feels very low. And honestly, it is kind of low, but how much are you missing out by not adding that another lumber camp? And when you think about having a lot of vills on wood, maybe you're doing a huge archer push, maybe you're trying to do a huge farm transition, being efficient with 20 or more vills on the wood line really doesn't matter, because the more vills you have, the more that lack of efficiency really hurts. So is it worth it? That's a discussion we'll have. Is it worth it? So the setup, here's how I wanted to kind of decide this. First, I did 8 vills, no upgrades. Reason being is, one, wheelbarrow is tough because some civs don't have wheelbarrow, so I don't want to do something that is not kind of universal. Though Knights Templar, you're out of this discussion. I also didn't want to do one vill because you will always have a group of vills, and the group of vills do cause variability in the gather. For example, let's say you have 8 vills on a wood on one tree, and they cut and they've run out of tree, but they still can gather more wood. They're gonna go to another tree, which will then cause a delay and drop off. So I didn't want to just do one vill. I wanted to do a number that we see common in the early game, which is 8, and based off that. My line definition. So if you look at the lumber camp and you see in this image, I would consider, you can almost see like there are lines of the next wave of tree. So in this case, when villagers are first gathering next to the lumber camp, that is the first line. The next group would be the second line. And generally the first and second line are defined as you can't drop a second lumber camp yet. Like if there is, once they're cutting, there isn't the 4x4 square to fit another lumber camp. So it doesn't matter if you want to or not. That's as efficient as it gets. So on this first to second line, so these first 2 rows of trees in front of the lumber camp, in general, we see 8 vills gather 250 to 280 wood a minute, to about the tune of 31.25 to 35 wood per minute per vill. Not bad. For no upgrades, pretty good. And then we hit the third and fourth line. So this line is defined by the ability to actually drop a second lumber camp. You could actually drop it and make it, once again, just a simple turn and drop off. They are now actually able to walk these villagers. So the question is, how much are they losing by walking this basically 4x4 square from the tree line to the lumber camp? So now we've decreased to about 200 to 240 a minute for these 8 vills, wood per minute, which makes about 25 to 30 wood per vill. So in comparison to the most efficient 1 line to 2 line lumber camp, we have an average loss of 45 wood per minute, which is like an archer. You're now missing out on an archer. An average loss of 5.75 wood per vill, which means if you added that lumber camp, you would pay off that lumber camp, that 50 wood, in a minute. And if this is a wood line that is pretty heavy in wood, that could be significant. If it's a thin wood line, like I'm thinking on prairie, for example, that might not be as worth it. You know, it really just depends on how much of a wood there is in that 1 to 2 line. I hope that makes sense what I'm saying. If it's a very small wood line, it's never going to be worth it dropping the lumber camp. If it's a pretty thick wood line and there's a lot of trees within that close proximity to the lumber camp, it's very much worth it to me to drop it, because then you're going to pay that off and then get that extra 45 wood, not extra, but more efficiently. Then we get to the 5th and 6th line, which is where you're microing a lot, you're doing a lot of things. You go back to your wood line and you realize my vills are walking a freaking mile to get back. So now we're at an extra distance. The vills are walking a significant amount of time. And there's a lot of variability here. First, vills are not the smartest at picking the most efficient tree to go to. So hypothetically, right, they would always want to go to the tree that is nearest to the lumber camp. You look at this image, you'll notice these are me leaving vills completely untouched. You have one vill who is on the most efficient tree. The rest have spread out to these corners, and I wanted to do it on purpose. I wanted to do it where, what if you just set 8 vills on the wood line and you're doing other things and not paying attention to them? What happens is, when I was observing, what will happen is if a vill finishes a tree, but they can't drop off to the lumber camp yet, they will go to the next closest tree, which will then cause vills to dig deeper and deeper into very inefficient areas for their wood chopping. While if a vill gets enough, drops it off, and the tree they're cutting is gone by the time they drop it off, they will then go to the next closest tree, which actually doesn't happen very often, which makes these really inefficient wood lines. So one small efficiency you can do is just redirecting vills to a better tree, which is free, as opposed to dropping another lumber camp. But anyway, so there's a lot of variability in that. In general, I was seeing about 180 to 220 wood per minute for 8 vills on the 5th to 6th line of wood of trees. And by 5th, I mean we're in 1, 2, 3 here, but all the way over here at the 4th and 5th and 6th lines. You could fit 2 lumber camps here to get to this person over here, basically. 180 to 220 wood per minute, 22.5 to 27.5 wood per vill. So that means you have an average loss of 65 wood per minute for 8 vills, and that's just 8. So the more vills you have, the more loss of efficiency you will have. That's an arch. That's almost 2 archers at this point. Average loss of 8.5-ish wood per minute per vill. So once again, if you look at this image, I'm definitely getting some efficiency from this vill that is only 2 lines in. Deep inefficiency from vills that are much farther out. So my general musings on this. One, this is why I think wheelbarrow is one of the most important eco upgrades if you're someone who's inefficient. What I've actually watched from upper levels is top players will go wheelbarrow, or they will often just do the more eco specific upgrades. They will get survival techniques because they're on deer. They will get the improved wood cutting because they're on the wood line, and they'll kind of delay wheelbarrow because wheelbarrow is fairly expensive. But if you're someone who's not good at consistently replacing your lumber camps, wheelbarrow is super important because it makes all your vills faster. They can gather more, so it makes them much more efficient. So if you're an inefficient ecoer, wheelbarrow is massive for you. And in general, that's why I still lean to always getting wheelbarrow first. I love getting wheelbarrow. I think it's just such an amazing upgrade. My eco upgrade tips. I remember learning this when I first started the game and was looking for learning. In general, if you have more than 8 vills on a resource, you should most likely get the eco upgrade for it. So if you're hitting 8 or above on wood, get that lumber gathering improvement. If you're on deer, you want to get if you have like 8 vills on deer, you want to get the survival techniques. If you have 8 vills on berries, you want to get the horticulture. Of course, if you're like rushing an age, or you think getting units out is the most important thing, don't do the eco upgrades, right? But if you're trying to add in eco upgrades, generally focus on ones that have more vills on it. As you enter castle and imperial, just add on. So if you have like 16 vills on a resource, you definitely want to get the second tier of that eco upgrade. So if you have 50 vills on farms and imperial and you don't have the farming upgrades, it is putting you at a significant disadvantage compared to your opponent who's also on 50 vills on food but does have the farming upgrade. So make sure you're getting those, especially as you add more and more vills to a resource. What I do personally is I try to always have the lumber camp. I really feel like I can sense when my wood vills are being inefficient, and especially if you are doing a very wood heavy comp, you definitely want to be re-adding the lumber camps because you have so many vills on wood and the efficiency really matters. That's gonna be it for me, just a fun little video on lumber camps. Hope you enjoyed my theory breakdown. If you're interested in coaching, if you're interested in my coaching Discord, if you're interested in following me on Twitch, all those are in the description below the video. Thank you so much for watching. Check out my other content, like, subscribe, all that jazz, and have a great rest of your day.